I am Emma McDonald, and this is Juliana Carrier, Jake Frostad, Leah Wilkins, and Brendan Wood, and we are the Solar Squad. Over the past couple weeks, our group has been researching renewable energy solutions for Irving farms. First, a bit about our sponsor. Irving's Farm Fresh is a free-range pork provider located approximately 20 minutes from Camrose near the hamlet of Round Hill. All their pork is produced without the use of added hormones and antibiotics. So now the goals of our project. We aim to create a long-term sustainability plan which would reduce Irving Farms' energy costs through the recommendation of solutions to reduce overall energy consumption and other sources of renewable energy. We wanted to provide scalable results that can be applied to the meat shop, farm, home, or all three. Also, we aimed to deliver solutions in a format that can be used in the future as a reference for research and investigation. Our sponsor expressed interest in the use of solar energy and had already done some research into that herself, so we wanted to delve further into the possibility of solar, while also recommending general ways she can reduce the amount of electricity used, and other forms of renewable energy such as biomass and geothermal. We also wanted to provide a final recommendation for our sponsor as to which form of energy will produce the best return on investment, have the lowest labor cost, and is most financially feasible, considering access to grants and other government programs. Finally, we also aim to understand the economic implications of alternative energy.
When the problem of sustainable practices is one that affects the entire planet, making changes in one small location may seem insignificant. It is true that the most room for improvement lies in the hands of larger corporations, as well as with political groups with influence in government. However, both of these groups rely strongly on public opinion to maintain their power and influence. While there are some efforts by these parties to use sustainable practices in their businesses or platforms, we are not yet at the point where we can stop relying on non-renewable energy sources. To make progress at these bigger levels, we need to make a shift in how we view renewable energy both economically and culturally. When individuals and small businesses turn their attention to making sustainable choices, eventually it can snowball into a large enough public pressure to push larger sectors to either act or be left behind.
To meet the objectives of our project, the group decided to come up with solutions that can be implemented in both the short term and the long term. It was important for us to consider the long-term applications of sustainable energy while balancing the investment costs of eco-friendly energy sources. Since Irving's Farm Fresh is a small family operation, it was important to consider the economic viability of each solution in terms of cost and logistical simplicity. To do this, we segmented our research into 3 sections based on investment costs, labor, and how long these projects would take to complete. We then used this information to suggest the best possible alternative energy solution for Irving's farm, along with potential funding options currently put in place by the Alberta government. So as you can see in this infographic, we segmented our research and our solutions into 3 main sections: green light solutions, yellow light solutions, and red light solutions. So green light solutions are going to be those that are more low cost and can be done relatively quickly. Yellow light solutions are those that require a little bit more of upfront costs and take a longer time to pay off, and can also be completed within approximately 2 years. Red light solutions are going to be those that are very long-term and have the highest cost implications, and are also those that require up to 5 years to complete.
So when it comes to implementing renewable energy sources on a small-scale farm such as Irving's Farm Fresh, many avenues can be taken to achieve renewable energy production. However, there is great difficulty in ascertaining whether certain technologies are cost prohibitive due to many factors such as scale, space, and the size of the required initial investment. Our deliverable takes the form of a report that aims to be an aid which can help to sort through the overwhelming amount of information available on renewable energy technologies, and to give examples that could be implemented today, as well as ideas for the far future. The main areas of focus are increasing the efficiency of current power use of biomass for power generation, use of solar for power generation, and geothermal heating and power.
High efficiency options are methods that can be implemented in order to reduce the amount of overall energy used, thus benefiting the environment while at the same time decreasing the amount of money being spent by the consumer. On Irving's farm, the meat shop requires the most energy, and in order to reduce this, traditional refrigerants could be replaced with carbon dioxide. Previous refrigerants have been horrible for the environment and have destroyed the ozone layer and have leaked into the water table. And the most common coolant used nowadays is ammonia, which is toxic to humans. Carbon dioxide has minimal effects on the environment and is harmless to humans unless they're exposed in very high amounts. It is also significantly cheaper than most traditional coolants, as 1 pound of CO2 costs about $1, whereas most traditional ones cost around $40 per pound. It is also much more effective in cold weather, which would be beneficial here in Alberta due to our cold winters. Another potential refrigeration solution to implement in order to increase efficiency is a heat recovery system. This is when the heat that is given off by the refrigerators is collected and stored and then sent off to heat different parts of the building, thus reducing the need to spend as much on heating costs.
One of our early ideas was to gather manure that could be converted into biofuel. Due to the nature of a free-range pork farm, however, manure isn't plentiful enough or found in large enough clumps to be a useful source of biofuel. This did, however, set us on the path of looking into other sources of biomass. We discovered compressed straw or wood can be converted into energy. First, you take the straw, grass, or wood, or whatever material you want to use, and you feed it into a pellet mill. This converts the material into small condensed pellets like what you can see in the middle image of the screen. These pellets are then fed into a boiler until things are hot enough to produce steam. This steam goes into a steam turbine which is coupled with the boiler, and electricity is produced. Costs for the equipment needed can wildly vary, but I've found ads for pellet mills going for as low as a few $100s in used condition. Turbines can also go from $2,100 for a micro turbine for the household, which would be too small for the farm's purposes, and then all the way to $300,000 for a brand name fancy industrial turbine. When I did the math based on some estimates about the meat shop's power usage, I found that it would take about 1.1 tons of pellets every month to completely power the three-phase portion of the meat shop's power needs. This does not include the power demands of the barn, the house, or the older part of the meat shop. One option for gathering the biomass is to take advantage of existing excess farm materials. Irving Farm currently has about 40 acres of land that is currently only growing straw, and only 15 acres of this land of the straw is being consumed. This excess straw could be gathered and turned into straw pellets with the pellet mill. While this strategy does make use of what could just become agricultural waste, it also has drawbacks. The physical gathering of straw and taking the time to feed it into a pellet mill makes the task of powering the meat shop more labor-intensive. The quality or the energy content of the pellets is also affected by the amount of moisture in the pellets and the type of mill that's being used. This leads into another option, which is just purchasing the pellets. The quality would be more consistent and there would be less labor involved overall. According to a quick report that I found from 2019, a ton of wood pellets cost about $247, depending on the brand you'd get and things. The amount of time it would take to see financial returns on an investment in biomass energy depends greatly on what grade of equipment is being used and what percentage of power you're hoping to supply with this.
Solar energy is the cleanest form of alternative power. Daily operation depletes no natural resources, produces no carbon dioxide, and generates no waste products. In the solar panel, many photovoltaic cells work to directly convert sunlight into electricity without the aid of any external systems. A big advantage of using sunlight for energy is the fact that the generation of electricity affects little about the environment around it. It uses the sunlight that was striking the area anyways. The basic structure of a solar power generation system consists of a solar cell matrix to convert the sunlight into usable electricity, batteries to act as a power buffer and ensure that there is a continuous supply of energy, a charge and discharge controller to stop the batteries from being overcharged or over-discharged, and an inverter to convert DC power to AC power. In the case of the meat processing shop at Irvings Farm Fresh, there will also need to be a phase converter to convert the single-phase AC power into the three-phase AC power required for the meat processing equipment. Implementing such a system has been estimated by AUENV to cost between $120,000 and $180,000. This upfront cost, while incredibly high, can be offset by a grant for implementing sustainable energy sources, such as the Energy Savings for Business grant from Emissions Reduction Alberta, which is offering up to $250,000 for small companies looking to adopt energy-efficient technologies. Aside from the benefits of a decreased electricity bill, there is also the saving on emissions that adopting solar power brings. Photovoltaic systems save 0.5 kilogram of carbon dioxide emission for every kilowatt hour of electricity produced. Using solar power generation cuts down on greenhouse gas emissions associated with traditional power generation. So in addition to saving on power, Irvings Farm Fresh is doing a great help in the fight against global climate change. If such a large-scale solar project is unfeasible at this time, a more easily implemented solar solution would be to replace the heating system for the pigs' water in the winter. An installation for this purpose would cost much less than converting the entire meat shop to solar power, while still being more ecologically sustainable than using traditional heating methods for this application.
Our final energy alternative, geothermal energy, uses the internal temperature of the Earth to produce harnessable energy. Most people don't think about Alberta as having an abundant geothermal energy resources, or we would see a lot more of it. When most people consider geothermal energy, they consider the large scale electrical plants. These require high temperatures at deep subsurface layers of the Earth, capable of producing enough electricity for a town or a small city. In reality, most of Alberta lies on a basin of 30 to 60 degree temperatures below ground, enough to produce low-level electricity. These temperatures may not be enough to heat a geothermal electricity plant, but these temperatures are optimal for heating and cooling applications. Geothermal exchange units, or GeoExchange, uses this energy to heat and cool small spaces with no greenhouse gas emissions. It works by having a system of buried pipes sending water deep into the ground that gets heated by the subsurface temperatures. This water is then sent back up to an indoor heating exchanger that collects this heat and uses it to heat water tanks and your air conditioning system. While this system has a relatively low initial investment cost, for new equipment costing between $15,000 and $30,000, we do classify this solution as a red light solution because it requires 1 unit of energy to run for every 5 units of heat produced. We recommend that to run at maximum efficiency, Irvings Farm implement a solar energy system first to meet the electricity demand this system would take, allowing them to sell more energy back to the grid than if they were to implement solar alone. If a geothermal exchange system were implemented alone, it would reduce approximately 55% of electricity consumption. Ultimately, to meet our objective, our group weighed the costs and benefits associated with each potential solution and determined that the most viable alternative energy solution is solar unit installation. While this solution has the highest initial investment costs, it will end up producing the greatest return as electrical costs are removed entirely. Other solutions we have recommended have smaller initial investment costs, but they will only reduce electricity consumption or require that existing infrastructure be replaced or modified. Furthermore, this solution will require the least amount of labor or manpower, as repairs don't need to be done as frequently. It was also important that the group look for an alternative that is commercially available and able to meet the electrical needs of the farm, such as the 3-phase energy equipment used in the meat processing shop. While these systems can take approximately 8 to 16 years to pay off, the ability to sell excess power produced back to the grid is an incentive that is currently not applicable with the other solutions that we have discussed. There are also funding options available and alternative energy venture programs for small businesses like Irving's Farm Fresh.
Looking at the next steps for Irving Farms, a great place to start saving energy costs is our green light solutions, such as the CO2 being used as a refrigerator coolant or the use of a heat recovery system. The green light solutions are cheaper options that can be implemented quickly to make Irving Farms more sustainable. There are many opportunities for projects involved in environmental sustainability to receive financial funding. Grants are available from the Government of Canada. There are also other institutions that provide funding for environmentally sustainable energy projects. Emissions Reduction Alberta is one such organization that funds initiatives in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and environmental impact. They offer funding ranging up to $250,000 and take on all sorts of projects involving sustainable energy. To get a more detailed and accurate estimate on investment costs and returns, Irving Farms can reach out to NUO or another electrical company to do an energy audit. These companies may find alternative options for saving electricity while conducting the audit. Many companies supplying the technology of the energy alternatives mentioned, such as solar panels or the biomass generators, offer options to rent or lease the equipment. This makes some of the yellow light options more financially feasible and perhaps implemented sooner. It also provides a chance to try out the equipment before committing a large investment. Another option to save startup costs would be starting a shared energy collective with the community of Round Hill. Natural gas line structures can easily be converted into geothermal systems, and the abandoned natural gas project near Round Hill would be an excellent opportunity to think about in the future. Geothermal plants would normally be too large in magnitude and cost for Irving Farms, but partnering with the community of Round Hill might make this option more realistic. Another exciting future investment to think about is the usage of electrical vehicles on the farm. Electrical vehicles would save on fuel costs and emissions, and they could also be powered by one of the other alternative energy options such as solar or biomass. The current price of the vehicles are high, which is why this idea is considered a future investment, but hopefully the cost will be lower in the future, and it is definitely something to be aware of.